Welcome back on the Leaders Who Care episode. And today we had a privilege to do a follow-up discussion and conversation, continue this discussion and the topic that was very interesting on the leadership succession. But today we'll talk about the building of future-facing creative business. And I would like to welcome back two of the most distinctive leaders within the a creative agency in the world called StrawberryFrog. For the audience that haven't watched the first episode, StrawberryFrog was founded nearly 30 years ago, which is incredible to see, and how they've grown and thrived in this difficult, challenging environment and world. But they had a very specific mission and a radical idea that a small senior team could outthink, outcreate, and out-execute the biggest holding companies in the world, no matter where they are. And their vision has become a reality. StrawberryFrog has worked with some of the most recognized brands, including Google, Heineken, Mercedes-Benz, Walmart, while remaining independent in the industry, which is quite unusual. Scott has also created more than just a business, but a movement thinking, a framework that applies the dynamic of societal movements to marketing and leadership, which has shaped campaigns and reached hundreds of millions of people globally. So yeah, today we'll explore how agency maintains its independence and performance at the global level. And we would love to really understand how they approach cultural differences across markets like China and India. So a lot to unpack here, but we are looking forward to also touch on how AI is shaping that industry and agency and shifting customer behaviors. So, Scott, Steve, welcome back on the Leaders Who Care.
And excited to be back. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us back.
Thank you for the first episode and sharing really a lot of the insights, and very interested to hear your story and the succession piece. But today, I will jump straight into some questions that were quite interesting, not only to myself, but to the audience as well. And Scott, Steve, what do you think has been the most important factor in allowing the business not just to survive, but to stay genuinely relevant after nearly 30 years? Most businesses statistically fail in the first 3 years, never mind 30. That's, and also be independent. Very curious. What is the most important factor to achieve that?
Go ahead, Scott. You take this one first.
I would say respect for each other, respect for every culture. Pendant le dessin, c'est toujours le jeu de interruption. Et maintenant, c'est le jeu de AI. And you have to respect that. Respect. And the reason I said that in French is because, we, from the very early days, didn't think we culturally were the center of the universe. We had people from lots of different cultures, men, women, and that's really important. People from different disciplines, people who have different experiences. And I think respect is valuable and important. We've kind of lost that a little bit in business, it's all about the dollar, it's about the short-termism, rather than believing in an idea, believing that you're as good as anyone. You can help an organization, regardless of how large or how small, achieve incredible things. And that's about respect, self-respect. I think the two most powerful words in the world are hello, which create opportunity, and no, which is about saying yes to yourself. So it's all about respect.
I love that. I think another thing that's really probably helped StrawberryFrog stay relevant too over those 30 years is its size and being intentionally small. I think that just offers such an advantage because it allows us, one, to make sure that everyone at the organization is a practitioner of the tools and the thinking that modern brands and clients want and demand. And two, it just allows us to move more quickly to find solutions. Things can change radically for us in the course of 90 days, whereas big bureaucratic holdco agencies just don't have the wherewithal to move quickly to make decisions outside of the structure and parameters that have been set up for them. So, in addition to the values, it's really the size that continues to be a choice and an advantage for us.
Actually, I think, Steve, you said something there that I think is really great. And I actually forgot about it when I said respect. I think that what you said is the ability to move is hugely important, because most CEOs and leaders of companies are blindsided through, they have all these really expensive systems and people to try to predict the future. And they make decisions in a bubble, optimizing for yesterday's model, while the ground shifts beneath them. And I think what he's talking about is a model that allows you to stay restless, be willing to lead, make, new paths instead of defending a fortress. Sure. Right? Fortresses get surrounded and attacked, and arrows end up, overcoming those fortresses. And I think this idea of being dynamic, we're living in the age when people are saying the next billionaire will be a one-person company. Think about that.
I'm very interested about that. When you said we intentionally small, can you tell us a little bit about size? When you say small, how do you define, how big are you to say small? Because, what's big and small in your kind of industry and world?
We're small, under 100 people full-time, but we have thousands of freelance people and independents around the world. Our model is revolutionary. So anyway, Steve, maybe you want to continue with that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think in our experience, that once you're talking about 150 people plus at an organization, I think the quality control gets really tough, and the structure that you have to put in place to try and ensure quality, it gets really difficult to maintain and to build a culture where everyone both has sort of access to the direction and decision making of the agency, and a way to impact it, and an expectation to impact it. And I think as you imagine this future and world with all of the tools at our disposal that AI is going to bring, we're going to need everyone to be a practitioner, because everyone is going to have the same access to the same tools. And so what's going to be the difference is certainly the strategic thinking and the taste that comes with experience and creativity, but also the ways in which you can use and manipulate those tools. So we're making sure that we're building a culture of practitioners where people are using all of the latest tools and mastering them. And that's coming both from, top down and bottom up.
Thank you for sharing. That is very interesting. I've heard that before as well, especially for service consultancy, creative businesses. I've heard that of there's certain size of around 100 with AI could make you do productivity over 1,000 if you use the right tools, and so the 10x exists, but depends how they use it, how evolved they are, and I'm really interested in how this is gonna shape up with AI. But talking a little bit, can we speak more about the movement framework and how it drives brand activation? Because how the same forces that drive cultural movements can be used to build brands and legal organizations.
Movement is basically, just think about it. Think about it for a minute. Throughout history, movements are the only thing that have actually moved billions of people in all sorts of ways. Any global phenomenon started as a movement. someone woke up and said, I have a different point of view. This is what I believe. And people were like, oh my God, he crystallizes, or she's crystallizing how I feel. I want to be part of that. And so this idea of a movement is not a crazy idea. It's been with us since man first came out of the Fertile Crescent 10,000 years ago. A movement is not something you build for people. It's something you build with people. It's something in a business context that happens when a brand stops talking about itself and starts standing for an idea on the rise in culture and creates a cause that people want to be a part of. And, brands can't create movements. That's false. Brands, however, can crystallize, sponsor, promote, align with a movement that's already existing in culture. And that is the power. And it can be used effectively both as a marketing tool to motivate people to buy something. It can also, and I would argue, is the only way to lead a company, by creating an internal movement. Because the age when CEOs demanded that people were obedient are over. You can't run a company with a mandate. You have to run a company in a way that people feel that they're part of something they want to be part of building. So it applies whether you're running a company inside, which is why Walmart hired us to help them with their 2 million associates worldwide. Or in the case of Emirates, they hired us to do a global movement for the world's most admired airline. That's a movement.
Closely, very aligned. Apart from the fact that I completely disagree, man came 10,000 years ago from the cave. So that one, I think, was so unique that, in my perspective, we're created by something greater. But very, very aligned on that. Steve, what is your take on this? What do you think? Not the man creation necessarily, but more.
It's like, all right, we're going there, huh?
More on reading the movements.
I didn't say man was created 10,000 years ago. I said when man came out of the Fertile Crescent, which is where society, in Babylon, and those were the early days of
okay.
people. That's what I
okay.
meant.
That's
when
helpful.
when people started living in cities and towns and commerce started, and people started living in communities, that's when movements started being important and valuable.
Actually,
to organize people. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Absolutely. No, thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, what I have believed wholeheartedly since I started at StrawberryFrog is a bit of what Scott laid out in terms of really being smart about trying to understand what in culture you are for and what in culture you are against. And I think if you've articulated those two things in a way that's both clear to the organization and the way that should shift behaviors accordingly, and also crystal clear to your customer or audience, then you've got some special sauce to certainly make some change if that's what you're after, but to motivate people to take action. And that can be making a purchase, engaging with a post on social media, sharing something. I think we're all in the business of moving people one way or another, and that doesn't have to be in some higher purpose way all the time. Many times that's just about finding the ways that we're going to bring people into the brand and into the experience in a way that's going to drive the bottom line. Because at the end of the day, if we're not moving our client business forward, then we're not doing our job. So I think it boiled down to just a for and against framework. You could do a lot with that if you put that into practice in the right way.
I'm also very curious to find your thoughts on, there's a lot of noise around AI and a lot of agents. You can create almost a whole marketing suite, with agents and so forth. I'm sure you're facing that every day, but from your perspective, what does enterprise AI transformation in marketing actually means for CMOs or marketing organizations?
Yeah, for me, it really starts with infrastructure. everybody wants the shiny new toy that is AI, but without the foundation of things like data access, governance, knowledge architecture, and then really education and training for the people in the organization, you've got nothing. And I think without that, you can't really drive transformation either for us as an agency organization or in the ways that we are strategically guiding our clients on how to bring it into their organization, sometimes in the marketing department, but sometimes more broadly. So I think it really has to start with the foundational pieces. And then once that's really set in stone, you can drive transformation in a more meaningful way, because otherwise it's just, noise and wallpaper that's not going to drive value. And really that's what all of our clients are after, is driving meaningful value with AI, not just driving expensive pilots or things that don't work. And that's even funny enough, the work that we've been doing with Infosys, who is really positioned as a consultant globally to drive enterprise value with AI. And I think what they saw in us and why they chose us as a partner throughout that pitch process was because of that shared value, to say we are first agnostic to the tools that we want to use, but we understand that it starts with just a foundational understanding and set of principles that's going to drive a business forward.
I relate a lot to that, because it's like AI may be used as driving a Ferrari without a driving license. Like you want to get into that shiny car, but you don't know what to do with it or where to go, and never mind how to operate. So you can crash it and create a lot of damage, which for a brand is very important, right? To know how to use that. So the way, I guess, what you think of you is you're the builders, foundational builders of setting the brand on the right foundation to thrive for years to come. And then of course you help them out to take as much as possible in their own in-house organization, or train them how to deal with the tools, etc. Is that the right analogy, you think? Or with StrawberryFrog, I'm just trying to kind of see how you can be perceived by our organization, larger clients.
Just to build on what Steve said, I think the way to think about it is, think about large companies and all the different strategies and departments that are being worked on. And at the end of the year, have so little to show for it. There's no value chain improvements. Everyone's talking always about the sexy, hot, new tech company. But there's a lot of companies out there that have been around, established organizations in Europe, in Asia, in North America, South America. They've been there for years. They're huge. They're multi-billion-dollar companies. And now for the first time, everything is connected. Everything is coming together. Everything is aligned in a way that never happened before. So you can actually develop a new product. And at the same time, the team internally understands what this does. The marketing is happening at the same speed. Everything is all aligned. The finance team is aligned. Everybody's talking to each other. That didn't happen before. So AI is adding that value. And I think what Steve and the team have done, would do really well, is they understand that and they figure out smart ways to make that work better for companies, both inside and outside. And the clients that we're currently winning are clients who really do appreciate that. In addition to all the bells and whistles that AI can do, like personalization and better insights and, synthetic focus groups and blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff we do. But more importantly, we understand what this new revolution of AI enterprise transformation is ultimately doing for the enterprise. It's making it work better, faster, smarter. And And as frogs that are aspiring to be better, faster, smarter, there's a really good alignment.
Talking about the global Asia, Europe, and global complexity, and you say now everything is connected. China, India, cultural nuances. You operate in a very different markets, so including China and India. How do you think about the cultural differences in practice, not just in messaging, but how strategy and creativity actually gets executed on the ground in those markets?
There's no one size fits all solution to every problem. Every problem has a different solution. And if someone says, "Oh, it's international, super easy. We can do everything from the center. It's all cool." No, you don't know what you're talking about. It's complicated, especially in today's world. It's very complicated. I'll give you two examples. One example is a very large global beauty company came to us and said, for years, we've been spending a lot of money developing a very expensive campaign from the center, and we send it out to all the countries. But now all the country CEOs are like, "You guys are out of touch with our audience. You don't understand." Like the CEO of Indonesia was like, "Our audience are 20 something women, and they're on social media, and they are engaging with ideas that are relevant to their world in our country, in our culture, like holidays, like whatever issues are being dealt with in that local microclimate. How could you possibly do a very expensive global campaign out of the headquarters for that world? What we need is a new model that allows us, God forbid, to give the countries power on the image that we have spent so many years curating. Think about it, right? Our brand is our image. We're going to give that to a 20-year-old social media person in Indonesia. Oh my God, what's the risk? Well, yeah, okay, there's risk, but if you think about it in a smart way, you can solve it. Versus a global brand like Jim Beam, which is a whiskey brand, that came to us and said, "Hey, we want to go to the world and launch this global brand." We came up with this big idea, and the big idea allowed us to flex differently in different countries. And in the developed countries like the United States, Germany, Japan, Australia, where the brand had been around since World War II, everyone knew it. It's a big volume brand. The brand you wanted to talk about tonight when you're going to the bar. We want you to think about our brand when you're going out with your friends. Whereas in the developing countries like Brazil and India and so forth, they were like, "We really like the cowboys and Western thing. Can you do ads about that?" So the motto we came up with was called Make History, which was all about tonight. When you're going out, you're going to make history that night with your buddies, with your friends. And it's a little bit of a different moment than a beer moment, because that was also a competitor. And then it allowed us to flex forward tonight for those developed markets, but it allowed us to flex backwards in the history aspect of it. So, two different problems, two different solutions, a global market. I think Steve and the team understand that. And if you're the CEO of a company listening to this and you're based in Switzerland and you want to achieve great solutions, talk to Steve and the team. We'll figure out the problem.
Lovely. And equally very curious about how do you maintain high performance teams? So on the other side, you talked about the clients, but talking about your own team, especially when it's globally distributed. I don't know whether a majority of your team is in certain areas or in US or whatever, but operating a global organization, what actually matters most to be successful is it structure, culture, leadership style, or something else?
Yeah, I think you named a couple of them, right? I think leadership and structure, especially when the teams are distributed, as well as the governance expectations and communication expectations. There needs to be a very clear subject matter expert who is fully responsible and owning quality control. And underneath that needs to be a really acute understanding of the cultural context and the context in which that audience is living in. So it's really the combination of the two of them, I think, that we were doing a really good job at. Certainly first quality control and taste, but then that has to be augmented with a really nuanced understanding of the culture and the audience that we're talking to. And I think the combination of local talent, but StrawberryFrog thinking and governance allows us to do that in a more distributed model.
We used to have 8 offices around the world, and now we have 1 office. But we have, as Steve said, thousands of talented people all over the place that we have known and worked with, and we have a reputation that they appreciate. When I say reputation, it's not just for, excellence in strategy, excellence in creative. It's we pay our people on time. If you're an independent contractor based in Dubai and you work with us, you're going to get paid in a reasonable, I don't know what it is, 2 weeks or something. So, we have a army of incredible talent everywhere on the planet. Steve mentioned we're working with Infosys. We work with people in many markets for that piece of business today. In fact, our chief creative dude went to India to produce a lot of the stuff that had launched internationally. So, we're nomads. We have a great network of people we know and trust. If you went to call Steve today and say, hey, I want to do something different. I want to work in a more efficient way. I mean, think about the cost savings. Instead of having offices in every country and snacks in the cupboard and having to pay all that stuff, you have one team that has that can form a global team fast for that period of that project. I mean, how smart is that?
That is like a web of talented, really significant, talented people around the world, and I'm not sure how you achieve that. So I'm just trying to understand what are you looking for when you hire people? How do you recruit? Like, what's important to you when you're looking at for someone that is qualified for you to join StrawberryFrog?
I think it's to pick on a couple things you talked about. The way that we've built that network is only because we've been doing it for 30 years. I think that gives us such an inherent advantage over the upstart independent and boutique agencies that we see, because we've got a track record and a network that you can only build over time. So there's an organization like StrawberryFrog that, as Scott said, started in Amsterdam and at one point had global offices across the world, gives us a really innate understanding of the essence of talent that crosses borders. So we're looking for, first and foremost, things like accountability, communication style, and the ways in which they work, and then ultimately a taste, which is subjective but incredibly important in our business. So we need to make sure that we have tastemakers identified. So we find ways to keep and retain the best talent. And sometimes, like Scott said, that's just paying on time or ahead of time. And a lot of times that's treating those teams like they're a full-time team member or a true frog that's going to stay forever, because, we want them to want to work with us. And we see time and time again that they come knocking, asking for opportunities, looking for opportunities, versus the other way around. We have a guy, Ryan Maloney, who manages this deep network of freelancers, both locally and globally. And he is just fielding calls inbound and outbound all day, trying to kind of keep this organized. And we're using AI now to really help manage that repository of talent, understand what they do well, and make sure that we're bubbling up the right people for the right opportunities, and at the right rates too, because at the end of the day, our clients have limited budgets and we've got to make a bottom line too.
Yeah, I think if you're someone out there listening to this podcast and you're saying, "Oh, I'd like to work with Strawberry Frog," and you think you have the strategic acumen, and you're somewhere in the world, anywhere in the world, I would strongly suggest you follow Strawberry Frog's LinkedIn. You check it out. There's always job need posted there, and also connect with the individual Steve just mentioned, Ryan, also on LinkedIn. And I'm sure he would be happy to hear from you. And that's, like reputation, but we're also always on the lookout for talent.
Excellent. And you described also being able to anticipate those changes in today's world and the shifts that we're seeing in health, wealth, AI. How do you and your team actually identify those emerging opportunities early, or you have identified those? Is there any framework that you follow to stay ahead?
Yeah, so we've built what we called a brand atlas, which is really a combination of traditional audience and brand data, but put together with all of the access that large language models have via things like AEO and GEO. So really scouring the internet to understand what the world, the internet, and consumers think about them. And we've put that together in a way that I think gives us a really simplified view of the attributes that real people associate with brands and where they do and don't trust them. So this brand atlas tool has been an incredible sort of eye-opener, both for us and our clients on a day-to-day basis, which we're constantly monitoring. And then as we look at new opportunities and emerging opportunities that they might not be seeing. So we're really trying to take the best of traditional data that we have access to and then augment that with the tools and realities that AI brings. So really nice piece of technology that we've built in-house here that has unlocked a lot of insightful thinking for us.
Well, that's very helpful. I've never heard of the Atlas concept. That's super interesting. And brand Atlas, as you mentioned. But really, because we always want to give something away for the audience when they're listening. And if we think about what a modern or creative, really successful organization agency looks like, and if we zoom out of this, what does the future-ready leadership look inside a modern creative agency?
To me, it's what was once service leadership to adoption leadership, which is really a slightly more emotional challenge than a technical one, in the sense that we've got to get all of our team embracing, using, and understanding all of the modern aspects of marketing. So they need to be spending time and understanding the trends on TikTok the same way that they need to be understanding what a comms plan is and how to put that in place to create a systematic way for a brand to operate, the same way that they need to be really proficient in Claude Cowork, building agents for themselves that are going to make them more efficient and effective at their job. So to me, it's really about that adoption leadership and setting a blueprint for people to continue to educate themselves on what it means to be a modern marketer, because I think people want to come work at a place where they feel like they're going to continue to learn. So if we're not creating that environment, then we're going to lose out. We've seen so many people come from big holdco agencies and say, holy shit, I've learned more in the 3 months that I've been here than I did in the 3 years that I spent at my previous agency. And that's what we want to hear. That's the feedback we want to get.
And what behaviors or decisions do you think you look out to separate, obviously, to know that this is the difference between success or failure? Because those behaviors and decisions that you make every day lead to success or failure. So I wonder if you have any framework or any quality control you talked about. How do you know where you're on the right track to succeed or not?
Well, we're looking at, hard data points all the time in terms of adoption and tool usage. But, at a level when we're talking and thinking about interviewing people, we're looking for attributes like curiosity, like emotional intelligence, and for a proof that they're going to fit into the values that have made StrawberryFrog what they are today. So it remains a very value-driven approach, but we support that with data in terms of things like adoption and understanding and usage of some of the tools that we have available to us as well.
Everything Steve said is 100% right. And I think there's also that judgment when we interact is this individual where the world was, or is this individual where the world is going? And if the answer is the latter, you're probably getting a second interview with Ryan. If it's the first, you're probably not.
And so many people in our industry want to take their knowledge and hold on to it as a way to continue to have leverage or power or control. But that's the exact opposite of the culture that we're trying to build. We want people who are generous with their time and their expertise, because that's going to make us all so much better. So if we get a sense at all that you're the kind of person who holds your expertise close and doesn't have the time or the acumen to share with others, then right away we know that you're not going to be a fit.
People have like innies, and belly buttons. You know your belly button?
Yeah.
Some people have an innie and some have an outie. Innies go in and outies go out. And I think we're looking for outies, people that are outward and willing to share, and not inward and not willing to engage and be generous. And
I hope you don't expect the belly button, actually.
It's the title of my new book, The Belly Button Management Approach. We only look for outies.
No lint collectors.
No lint collector, exactly.
I talk about systems and really tools a lot that helps you, and you're generous to share with others. You don't want to hide. Can you give us top 3 tools that perhaps would be really useful for you guys that you've been using recently or over the years?
Yeah, I think, the foundation of the way that we're working now has really been built on Enterprise Claude. So we've really invested in that as the foundational center of gravity for all the work we're doing. I talked about some of the more traditional data sources that we're using. Things like MRI and YouGov are really strong centers of data that we can sort of then leverage in-house and power and pair with Claude. And then we've also built our own social listening tools. So to us, it's the combination of Claude, of traditional data sources like YouGov and MRI, and then social listening and social media acumen that I think have really built a strategic foundation that is more relevant and more insightful than what we're seeing and feeling from the competition, and sort of tracks with the feedback that we're getting from pitches and from clients that say, hey, we chose you because we feel like StrawberryFrog can actually educate us, can teach us something, can be our partner for what's next. So that seems to be a really nice tool set, at least as a core for what we're using.
Absolutely. I think that is incredibly valuable because you're not only helping to solve a problem, but also you help them to get better internally as well, and that's elevates the level, and it's also good for you because some agencies think of the scarcity mindset. If we teach them, they'll not give us a business, but if you teach them, they actually want to do more at a higher level. That's how I've seen things happen and unveil, and that's really quite an honor to what you do in giving. One last question. If there was no limits for you, no limit in terms of resources, what would you like to see change for a more caring or more positively impactful world? What do you guys dream of?
Go for it, Scott.
I mean, obviously, brotherly love and um, uh, peace on earth, and stop climate change and all the things that are making the world a harder place to live, and live in a world that people benefit from each other and enjoy each other, which I think is fundamentally what most people are looking for. So, if we can help companies understand where the world is, the friction, the tensions, and come up with good solutions. And I'm not talking about political ideas. I'm talking about genuine ideas that help people live better lives, and in a smart and creative and fresh way to do that. I think to me, that would be amazing. We helped reinvent Pampers, a diaper brand, by taking probably the world's best engineered poop catcher and turning it into an idea around a conviction around baby development. And no politician, no matter whether you're on the left or the right or whatever, are going to look at baby development and say, I fundamentally disagree with that concept. Baby development is in the interest of everybody. The makers of the diapers, the product innovators, the marketers, the buyers, everybody. So the more we can bring people together inside companies and outside companies, if we had all the money in the world and we could wave a magic wand, to me, that would be it.
Yeah, I think on a sort of more personal or even local level for us, we just want to create an organization where people are going to find balance and fulfillment. That's what we want to make StrawberryFrog the best place for the best talent to work. And so we have an opportunity every day to change and improve the people's lives who are part of StrawberryFrog. So in the sense of controlling what you can control, I think we want to start there. And then hopefully the echoes of that impact as resources and scale improve allow us to bring a bit of that vision that Scott outlined, which I totally agree with, to the brands and to the masses.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been incredibly interesting to hear and listen to your views and thoughts, and a lot of best practices and values that you've shared. I wish you a great continuous success in every area, and blessings to you and your team, and of course the work that you do, more bringing together, more joyful and positive impact for everybody, no matter which country, territory they come from. I think love and care and peace, they have no boundaries, no left or right or religion or so forth. So really appreciate you. I've really been very grateful to meet a lot of great people like you, and it's not just the end result, but how you achieve that. So really appreciate your approach and how you do things, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Thank you so much.